So I was at the bar, and people like talking to me. I think it's just general therapist face. But anyway, people like talking to me. And I saw someone who I know. I've known him for a couple of years now. I've met his dad. I really like his dad, actually. But I was just, went over and was asking about after his dad. And, he started to talk to me. And the last time I saw him, he was in a relationship. And in this relationship, I personally perceived a little bit of a disconnect. But that's not my place, right? We are acquainted, we're friendly, but we're not that close. And also, he's not my client, right? So, I held my tongue. And he's also a very grown man. So I assume as a very grown man, you know how to handle yourself, right? After a certain point. Doesn't mean you handle yourself competently, but you know how to handle yourself. But I was just thinking, he went through this whole relationship. I don't quite know how it ended. But the last time I saw him, he had somebody new. And he was talking about her, and he was saying the exact same things he said about the last one. And of course, there was friction at play, but he wanted it to be something different. So I'm just thinking about relationships generally at this point. Not all lasting couples get along. Personally, it is a priority that me and my partner get along, just because that's the sort of dynamic I like. I want to laugh, I want to joke. Any tension should be reserved for sexual matters. Really and truly. That doesn't mean I don't want someone who can't fight with me, because I'm a very powerful woman. So sometimes I need somebody who can actually go, we'll say toe to toe with me. We're not fighting each other. But if we have a problem or if we have a difference of perspective, I've always wanted someone who could clearly express that to me and who I wouldn't bulldoze, because I'm a very strong woman. And my strength comes out in different ways, but one of the ways that it can come out is I'm doing what I'm going to do. I think what I think, I feel how I feel, I'm doing what I'm going to do. Now, when you have a partner, you're still going to think how you think and feel how you feel, but what you're going to do is going to affect more than just you. So you have to take them into consideration. That doesn't mean you don't do what you were going to do. It just means you take them into consideration. So anyway, back to this moment where he was talking about somebody, this partner, and he kept saying, I want her to be the one. Now, I think she's the one. I want her to be the one. And he said that about the last girl. And, mind you, this is over a couple of years. I'd say over a good 3, 4, 5 years. Same script. Most of us do that, especially when it's related to something at our core that we haven't necessarily looked at. You don't have to pathologize everything. I think that's an actual problem that we've gotten into in our romantic spaces. People are very risk averse. People don't actually want to venture anything. People don't want to put themselves out there in a particular way. I understand, but it's also not going to yield the results they think it will or that they hope it will. It's delusional. It's really delusional. If you don't communicate, if you are not honest about what you're thinking and feeling, if you're not honest with yourself, then I don't really see it working out with another person. And I think that sort of risk-averse, like painfully risk-averse thing is an actual barrier to connection that's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it'll keep proceeding. Because nobody wants to move off of their position. Again, I understand it's not going to work the way we think it will. Anyway. I think she's the one. I want her to be the one. I want her to be the one. So we asked. I'm here with my good girlfriend, who also knows him and met his father. So we both asked after him. I'm here with my good girlfriend, and she asked, but is she the one? And he kept going, I want her to be the one. So we gently asked him, do you hear what you just said? Because he asked for our advice. It was just so strange. So, because I left it at, oh, congratulations. I hope that goes well for you. Because I asked about the last girlfriend. I thought she was still in the picture because the last time we had spoken, he was ready to propose. So I put my foot in it. That's on me. That's on me. I probably was being a little mixy. That is mixy of me because usually I don't ask that kind of thing. Maybe he needed to have that conversation. Anyway, so I want her to be the one. 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 My response was, of course, play back what you just said. Are you telling yourself the truth? Again, no answer. He couldn't answer, but I could see on his face he knew. I'm not telling myself the truth. Okay. All right, so problem number 1 there. And from other parts of the conversation, I could kind of see where it was stemming from. But again, we're not that close, and he is also not my client. So it proceeded. So he kept pushing the issue like he wanted more and more and more. You know, sometimes when you get to digging in a wound, well, when someone gets to digging in a wound, it kind of feels good even though it hurts. So I don't really like being used in that way, especially when I'm off duty. But he was very insistent, and I was like, okay, if you want it, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. And he kept pushing. So I said, you can have the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. I've certainly had the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. But whoever it is that you are looking at is just who they are. We'll say Bob. Bob is Bob. Okay? Bob is Bob. And of course, in any lasting relationship, there is an element of, yes, I choose Bob to be my one. I choose Bob to be my one. And that goes in non-romantic relationships too. Because there are definitely friends, and you may fall out with them, you may whatever with them over a course of years, but you repeatedly say, I want them to be my one. They are my one. They are my one. I choose them as my one. I choose Bob as my one for whoever Bob is. And it's not, the compulsion isn't something that you have to force, even if you're an avoidant. The compulsion is not something that you have to force. There are people who you love, people who you are in love with, and they do things that no one else could ever do to you and breathe another bit of your air. And I'm not saying that you lower your standards. I'm not saying that, you let heinous people close to you. But there are things like, let's say Bob sucks on the pickles and puts them back in the jar. You don't eat the pickles, but you still find it very freaking strange. And you would never associate with someone who did that. Like, you just wouldn't associate with someone who did that. It's just too weird for you. It's just a bridge too far. And, but Bob does it. And there's a connection between you and Bob. A connection between you and Bob where you're helpless against it. There's certain things that Bob can do. That Bob gets a dispensation. Bob gets a free pass. There are certain things that Bob can do, and it's just a Bob thing. And you love Bob. So Bob is Bob, and you now have chosen Bob to be your one. So whatever comes along with Bob, you're gonna rock with Bob. Bob is who you went home with. That is a very different energy than we fight all the time, and I want her to be the one. Again, there are long-term couples whose their thing is not harmony. Their thing is tussling, but the tussling somehow brings them closer. And it's, again, that connection thing. There is some sort of charm, some sort of affection, some kind of attraction that you feel that makes you helpless against whatever it is that they're doing, because it's part of who they are. So anyway, I just wanted to remind you that that sort of connection isn't forced. Now, you do have to be available for it. And sometimes, mentally, if you notice, actually, when you're in those connections and Bob is kind of fractious and you don't really get along with Bob, but again, there's that thing. And it's not from a place of wounding. It's just a natural connection. It's a natural attraction. There's that thing with Bob, and you're not getting it anywhere else. That's not something that you force. And logically, you may not want that to be the case. That's not how you envision your happily ever after. I don't want to be with, you never thought. I don't think anyone wakes up and goes, you know what I would really like? I would like someone that I don't get along with. And remember, I'm not saying that I'm incompatible with. I would like someone that I don't really necessarily get along with. I don't think anybody wakes up and thinks that. But it happens. And logically, well, Bob didn't go to an elite school. Bob isn't who I thought of. Bob isn't who I thought I wanted on paper. And you have moments like that where that actually turns out to be your person. You do not have to make them your person. You do not have to turn them into someone they're not. You do not have to turn them into the one. That is usually indicative of something else going on. So anyway, we had a little bit of that talk, but what I left him with was tell yourself the truth. I think that is probably core wisdom. Tell yourself the truth. And when I say tell yourself the truth, that means actively do the work to know what your own voice sounds like, because we are full of conditioning until we're not. We're full of conditioning. We're full of what other people think, full of other people's opinions. We're full of other people's perspectives. And we can't necessarily tell where our voice is coming from until we do the introspection work necessary. Now, what I did with the neurointuitive method is I cut straight through the subconscious. And I cut out the noise. And I cut out the self-sabotage. And I cut out the unwillingness to tell yourself the truth. It's like a surgical approach to that sort of thing. You don't have to do it that way. People have meditated for ages and learned to hear their own voice, learn to hear the divinity, learn to hear their inner voice, learn to hear their God voice. People have been doing that for ages. In fact, you could sit down and do it right now. But if you are full of conditioning, it may be harder for you to hear your own voice above everybody else's sort of opinion. Because eventually when it's somebody else's opinion and you take it on as your own, you start to parrot it. Now, it doesn't have the same resonance in your body, so you can tell it's a lie. You can tell it's not from you. You can tell it's not original. But it's still work that you need to do. So anyway, I don't know what became of the situation. From some of the insight that he was giving me on the situation, it seemed like truly incompatible. It felt incompatible in my body. I have that kind of internal radar whenever anybody is telling me something, which can be frustrating because I'm very keenly aware of when somebody's walked up to me to tell me a lie. Now, I'm grateful for it now. I'm absolutely grateful for it. But it used to be so fatiguing because, most lies are unnecessary. I mean, really and truly, especially once you're an adult. You're like, why are you lying? Why are you lying? I understand children lying. I understand people who are in disadvantaged positions lying. I don't understand adults lying. I definitely don't understand them lying to me. But yeah. So anyway, those are just some thoughts on love. Yeah. And relating. Maybe we can have a conversation on the risk aversion. Let me know if you'd like that.